Hello, welcome back. We took a little
Thank you,
commercial
sir.
break.
It's been a while.
All right, so where were we? We were talking about what shocked you the
Most
most.
shocking. Mary,
Yes.
Mary, getting to tell Mary that she beat out Courtney Cox was the Mary for the getting to beat out Courtney Cox for the greatest American heroine.
Hmm.
Um, oh my God, Alexa Hamilton. Uh,
Okay.
I knew what I looked for. I looked for the people I look for, and I got to look up because I found when I look down at you, it looks like I'm falling asleep. So I'm going to look directly at me for the next 20 minutes. um, Alexa Hamilton, I wanted so badly. She did Saturday on Sunset Boulevard.
Hmm.
Saturday morning on Sunset Boulevard, I wanted her badly because I checked everybody's IMDb. Your first gig is the one you remember the most.
Right. Hmm.
And when I found her and I saw at the beginning of her a long impressive career, including CSI or NCIS and everything, when I saw she made her debut, I wanted her badly. And this is I mentioned in the last episode about how my sister said give it 6 months until everyone shakes out.
Right.
And and that paid off in spades because Alexa was the very last interview. She called me up. We did an amazing interview. I would have lost that interview had I got the book out when I did. When she was free and we did a long, funny interview, which is in the book. The
Hmm.
Italian Job is the name. You'll understand why when you read it.
Hmm.
Her stories as a greenhorn, as a brand new actress on this show. My favorite stories in the book, hands down. My
What we
favorite is
do.
she even has great stories about William Katz's mother.
Yeah.
Watching Princess Leia's mother make fun of Debbie Reynolds, make
Hmm.
fun of Raymond Burr, and then was sort of Perry Mason. Fantastic, you know.
That's really cool. And I read the book, and I'm not going to give it away, but it was a very, very funny read. Once you see what happens in there, it's really, really cool. So
Thank you,
again,
Joe.
yeah, yeah. So I'm taking another one of Nancy's question. Again, thank you, Nancy Johnson. So
Yeah,
this
thank
is
you, Nancy
curious.
Johnson.
Hmm. So did you have to edit anything out of this 500 plus page book? Are there any secrets in your books that only a few people would understand?
It's pretty much as it should be. I mean, there would be, people would talk about stuff on the show that had nothing. It would have no context over modern audiences. Any stuff. If they were telling you a story about Greatest American Hero, and then they went into something that happened to them on an episode of Riptide. Well, not a Canal show, but they would start telling you a story about amazing stories. Yeah, cut that because obviously the book is about Greatest American Hero.
Hmm.
Um, no, Nancy, sadly, nothing salacious. They all liked each other and they seem, you know what I mean? I mean, what's great is you would get different views of different people. I
Hmm.
love how William Catt is seen on the first. I love how people in the book, the guest stars in the book, to me, because they're boots in the ground, they're the people who saw what was going on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I love, I love. I'm going to go to Alexa on this. She's talking about what an eager, excited guy William Catt is the first season. He's doing character notes into his tape recorder to remind himself details, this and that. And then you get to Joey in the third season, and Joey remember Paul in the third season,
Yeah.
and by that point, William Catt is just holding his script out of camera range because
I
the
know.
show is considered dead into the water.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, you can see that three hard running seasons have knocked the enthusiasm out of William Catt and cast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and it
So how?
wasn't, to me, he still said Catt was a great guy, but you could tell the eager beavers of the first season were now.
Hmm. So it's funny how over time his view of the show changed, right? He was more of a theater guy, and he kind of did TV because he thought the pilot was cool, didn't think it would last long. And then as time goes on, he really, really appreciates the show, and he loves it for what it was. Um, what was interesting in the book is that he writes the foreword. And so how did that come about? Did you ask him to do it, or did he
I
willingly
sure
want
did.
to?
Well, to me, when asking the forward, I want to make sure I want, you know what I mean? It's like the blessing of the hero of the show. You know, like
Yeah.
Lou did Lou did a really touching forward for my Incredible Hulk book. You know, Aaron Gray did one for Buck Rogers, and
Mhm.
that's not because Gil Gerard said no. It's because everybody I interviewed for everybody, all of my friends, all of the people who knew about the book, everybody wanted to know Aaron Gray stories. Everybody, you know what I mean? I mean, what was weird is everybody would ask, you know, are you going to talk to Aaron Gray? You know, when I was running Buck Rogers, every single person, are you going to get Aaron Gray? So,
Mhm.
and she wrote a beautiful foreword with him. You know, when I told him and Dennis I was going to do the book, to me, they were the first two guys I talked to. The very first interview at Jerry's Deli was sitting down with Billy and with Dennis, and they knew the amount of detail and research I was putting into it. They knew, you know, when I would tell them while working on it, some of the stories I was coming up with. The great thing is William Catt promised me he would do the forward, and he wrote this really great forward. I mean, it's a really funny, touching forward. And he sent me a really nice note after the book was done.
Oh,
He
cool.
said, "Thank you for telling me stories I didn't even know on the show I started." And that made my day because I just, you know what I mean? I mean, I love when that happens. I mean, Lou Ferrigno told me they kept putting him in a refrigerated trailer so his makeup wouldn't melt as the
Right.
Hulk.
Hmm.
And he said in his forward on that, he said, Pat tells the stories I missed because I couldn't be on set. I like that. I liked it. When people are calling you 6 months after you wrapped up because
Hmm.
you're waiting to get everybody's stories, and they're
Hmm.
like, I need to tell this story. I need to talk about this. It
Hmm.
would be, you know what I mean? I mean a lot of crew, a lot of writers, producers in the crew wanted to talk about the tragedy that the Canal family went through during the show,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Nobody ever contacted me because they wanted to burn somebody. Everybody contacted me because they wanted to relate some act of kindness that William Catt did for them. They wanted to relate something nice that Mr. Culp did for them. They wanted to relate something that Connie showed them. Everybody who called up, it was almost like a family reunion. They're like,
Hmm.
I can't let you do this book without talking to me. Is there still time? And everybody who called me up needed it to be in the book. The
Well,
people, what? Oh, go on.
no, one of the interviews, one of my favorite episodes is definitely in my top five is Operation Spoil Sport. And you
Love
actually,
Operation Spoil Sport.
yes, and you actually interviewed two people from that TV show, and the names escape my mind, but it was Sergeant
John
Jensen and
DeFusco is one of them, and you're talking about his commanding officer, the guy from Back to the Future 2.
oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Oh
I
my
didn't know
God,
that.
you know who was wonderful? One of the last interviews, Robin Riker.
That's what I was
Robin
talking about.
Riker is
Yeah.
not from Alligator. She's not, and she was on the second episode of Buffy. Not
Okay.
only is she flippin' adorable,
Mhm.
her stories are just so warm and so great, you know?
And they both of those had really big scenes, even though they were in there for a small part. They both had a big part in the story. And you know, the sergeant, he kind of looked like the living Night of the Living Dead or Walking Dead when they
Yeah, and
he got.
you know what else they're doing with the black circles around his eyes?
Hmm.
Some of that is the movie. Yeah, you're right. He looked like Ned Living Dead. He
Hmm.
also looked a little bit about Carnival of Souls. You know,
Hmm.
there's a Carnival of Souls and the Hitchhiker episode of Twilight Zone, which they visually quote in the episode, where he
Right.
keeps driving past. She keeps driving past the hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker keeps showing up. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I mean,
Yes.
to me, what the great thing is when you'd have a greatest American hero director, and I believe that was the guy who did the pilot. That was our pilot director
Rod
on
Holcomb.
that.
Rod
Yes,
Holcomb.
God, and he did such a great job creating a mood. I found Holcomb did some of the best episodes overall because he set the look for the series. And so
Yes.
he would always go back to that. You
Yeah.
know, you read Cannell's draft, as good as it is, it's even better after Holcomb directed it because there's bits in there that were not in the final that were not in the shooting script. You know,
It's kind of cool when you're watching it. Like you could watch the pilot, you could watch the season opener for Operation Spoil Sport. It's like a
direct
continuation.
sequel.
Yeah,
Yes,
yes. And then you could even watch the season three opener, Divorce Venusian style. That would be
yes,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
nice
And then
wrap up.
exactly, and
Yeah,
they make it clear. You're exactly right. They make it clear. They make it clear, and I mean, they fit so well together. Even
yeah.
though I think Frank Lupo was the writer did Frank write Operation Spoil Sport? I think I think Cannell wrote Don't Mess Around with Jim, and I think
Yes.
Frank wrote but
Uh,
Operation Spoil Sport feels like a direct sequel to the pilot, you know?
right. It does. And yeah, I it's really great to you could like literally watch it as like a big full movie. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this question. So I know you're a horror guy, and Nancy had a really interesting question. So she says, Lon Chaney, The Invisible Man, and Frankenstein were all alluded to on Hero. Are you a fan of vintage classic horror movies or actors, and which ones influenced you?
Tell her I am. You know, the weird thing is the big universal monster I loved was the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Okay.
And one of my first professional interviews was Benny Chapman, who played the creature. Ben Chapman, who played the creature in the Black Lagoon, became a family friend.
Oh,
And
cool.
so when I booked, I remember booking I booked a Frankenstein monster gig in a Universal Studios commercial,
Hmm.
and I was so excited. I called Benny, who lived in Hawaii. Always got my Christmas cards from Benny and his wonderful family, his son Grant, his wonderful wife, and his kids.
Hmm.
But I remember he goes, his most important advice was, "Don't drop the girl," you know, because I had to playfully menace the fun at Universal with these college girls going through a maze and Universal Horror Nights, and Benny was like, "The number one advice, the same thing Jack Arnold told me: don't drop the girl," you know, because he's carrying the beautiful Julie Adams creature. So I tell her I love all the Universal monsters, but I write for Fangoria and I write for Dark Side and all these other horror. I've done monsters. I mean, my favorite was Bigfoot, but I really love the Universal classics. I grew up in Detroit. We had a guy named Sir Graves Ghastly. He would, when I was writing the book, I wound up interviewing. He wasn't on the Greatest American Hero, but this old wonderful guy who played the leader of the Mole People. He was the main mole in the Mole People, and all his stories were hilarious about, the stuff we think about as classics. They were thrown together on set. He said they had to stop shooting on Mole People
Hmm.
because all the Mole People's humps were full of old newspapers, and the newspapers during the fight scenes would fall out all over the floor. And when they started getting on camera, the crew guys had to shove them back up the mole's humps on the mole people's backs. I love stuff like that. I love the fact that the most important lesson I learned when you do a monster in a monster movie is when they're doing all this stuff where they're hunting for the monster.
Hmm.
There's the monster's footprint, there's the hair on the tree. The monster is usually drinking in town with the stunt crew because it's a daylight thing, and the monster and the stunt people don't work till night.
So is that your favorite kind of role to play? That you are like you like playing the monsters?
I love, there's no shame in being in being as myself. I'm usually like a Viking. I'm usually like Viking and hard hats and cavemen. I do a lot of cavemen and commercials. So that's always fun. But yeah,
But
when you don't show your face and you're running on all fours towards the camera, there's nothing better. You know,
you like to scare the audience too.
I love the scare of the honor. Again, as Nancy correctly deduced, I love horror movies. I love monsters. I love when I realized at 6'9" that I could be a monster in the movie. Oh my god, that was the best.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, so Nancy also had some interesting questions about your work, your books. So, do you want each book to stand on its own, or were you trying to build a body of work with connections between each book? She likes the cross references of bodies of work for the cast and the crew. And I just want to add to that is that when I was reading your books, and I read different books, it was interesting to see the interconnections between the shows and the people who appeared on which shows, and it was kind of cool to see. But I don't want to interrupt this question, which was, you know, did you want your books to stand alone, or did you want to see connections between your books?
With me, it's really simple. It was the stuff I've covered is stuff I liked and I always wanted to see a book on, and there wasn't. There was there was nothing on all four Jaws movies. That was my first book. I loved the original Jaws like everybody else.
Yeah,
And
which
and I
it's
you love
surprising
that
that there
book.
was not, yeah, it was surprising that that was not out there. And then you were able to interweave them all together. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, but it freaked me out because all these books wanted none of these books wanted to address why the shark by the fourth movie is
Mhm.
chasing the family to the Bahamas because he only wants to eat members of one family. You have to show Stephen King used the term universal syndrome, how you'd have a brilliant creature from the Black Lagoon and a really terrible creature walks among us. You
Mm.
know, how you start off with the film noir Frankenstein and then wind up with them chasing around Abbott Costello. So Stephen King calls that in his book Dance Macabre universal syndrome. And I kind of wanted to show that in the Jaws book.
Right.
Nobody else, they just pretend the sequels don't. The sequels got no respect till after my book. Now there's books on Jaws 2 and Jaws The Revenge. I'm sure somebody's thinking about a Jaws 3D book, and I'm saying, go to it, fellas. But
Hmm.
there's no, and with the Hulk, I saw a book by Herbie J. Pilato, and the book was called The Bionic Book. And God love him, he must be insane. I met him, he's nice, but he must be insane because he did episodes guides for the $6 million Man and the Bionic Woman in one book. That's way
Wow.
too much work for this soldier. So, but when I saw that, I remember looking at it and I said to my brother Don, you know, I wish somebody would do a book like that in the Incredible Hulk. I would read it. I don't want to write it. It's too much work. And he goes, why don't you write it, dummy? My brother Donald is very playful. And he goes, why don't you write it, dummy? And I remember thinking, except for the dummy part, I thought, wow, he's got a point. And when I pitched it and they jumped at it, again, that's before I remembered how many seasons it was. It wasn't until I was midway through second season that I began hating my life.
Selfishly, I'm glad you did it because
Thank you, sir.
yeah, it
I'm
was a
glad
great.
my pain brought you joy.
I enjoyed it. I loved every word. I read it from
Thank
cover to
you, Joe.
cover.
You
Yeah.
didn't love every word because I didn't love every word writing. It's like, why couldn't this show have been 2 seasons?
Very cool. So, does your writing invigorate you, or does it put you in a frazzled state of mind?
Well, I think you can guess from what I just told you. I do have frazzled states of mind on these. You know what? I love. It's like you hear women say about having a baby. It's all
Yeah.
that work. By the
Hmm.
time I'm done, and when you first emailed me about a Greatest American Hero book, I was in the stage where I just wanted to be done with it. I just wanted to get it done.
And I
And
was like,
then,
no, no,
yeah,
celebrate.
but by the time you hold the book, by
Yeah.
the time you're holding the book in your hands, you're thinking, I had to, this book actually gave me light PTSD. This book was so
Mhm.
much work towards the end of it. I
Yeah.
had to keep a copy around because I had a dream. I had a dream for about 2 weeks that I was still working on the book after it was done and out. And
Gosh,
that's never happened on any previous book. You would find yourself dreaming about writing it.
the
But
book
this
that never
one,
ends.
yeah, this one, one of my friends joked, my friend Neil jokingly called the book "The Satanic Rites of the Greatest American Hero" because it felt like I kept saying I'm never going to be done. It's Groundhog Day. I'm writing and writing. And I
Yeah.
mean, when COVID was on and nobody wanted to talk, that's when it was I'm sitting on it. The first Brave Soul. to join Kat and Madeline was I went and had a great sit down with a wonderful character actress named, and it was one of her first roles. One of the important things about these books is I want to talk to people who made their debut because they
Mhm.
will remember everything in great detail.
Right.
Marianne Mueller, a wonderful, wonderful lady. She's
Okay.
the, I think I mentioned her on our first interview for this. She's the wrong Sarah Connor in Terminator. She had wonderful, vivid stories about Cat and Culp, and just had a great time. She she'd just come off a brand new show called Magnum PI, where she went to Wahoo, and she comes to do this, and she goes, "I've just stayed next door to Tom Selleck in the nicest hotel in Oahu, and now here I am in Victorville on this and behind, on this dusty, dirty set as a female truck driver." And I mean, I love that she was that vivid. I
Hmm.
love like Alexa Hamilton. You get people who made their debut, and Paul Carafotes, who played Joey. I was Joey in season 3. I
Yeah.
love their stories because they were so
Mhm.
new, and they remember this more than their 50th gig, because this was everything was new, everything was exciting and scary. You
Yeah.
always remember your first gig, you know.
Right. And it's a shame you couldn't get Zapka because that was his first gig for Hero in season 3 in Space Ranger, right? That he plays like a opposite of what he was known for. He plays like a nerdy type.
Well,
Uh,
I got him. I got Zabka, but he had nothing. He just kind of shrugged when I asked if he had memories of it. His father, his father had sold a song to the show, and I think the dad did a little bit of work on the show.
oh,
So I
really?
don't know. I would have loved to hear stories about that. I did get him, but he just didn't really have anything to say about
Right. Yeah, yeah.
it. To the
That's
point
what I was
where
trying to
you
say.
can't put down shrugs indistinctly at the
I
at the
know.
at some Comic Con in Vegas, or Utah. So you know
It's a
what I mean? I
shame.
mean,
Hmm.
but I mean, I asked, and his the indifference of his answer. There you go. You know.
Hmm. So so I want to talk a little bit about Robert Culp also because he has some great lines in his as Maxwell. He played a great character. He had some cool, got him by the garbanzo beans. I'm so glad you put that in the book, like all those sayings that he had. Um, but did you have any fond memories of Robert Culp?
Yeah, because and one of his sons is in the book too. The Joseph Culp, who was the first actor to play Doctor Doom, and
Hmm.
to this day, he's the only live action. He's the only live action actor to play Doctor Doom in the full armor. They always
Yeah.
kind of half-assed it in the later Doctor Doom
Hmm.
Fantastic Four movies.
Right.
But yeah, when I first got my SAT card, I didn't have an agent yet, so I did extra work on this western on the Paramount Ranch. And as I told, when you do that, you know, you I'm 6'9", so they would hand me on this western show. They would hand you a rake, and you would lead a lynch. You would lead a lynch mob. You would lead a lynch mob on this western type show, and the show is so politically correct. You're lynching a blonde, blue-eyed Swedish kid because nobody wants to be offended on television. So I remember sitting on this. So I'm on this show. You know what I mean? I mean, you're in bib overalls. I was wearing a fake beard. Because you got $30 a day if you put a beard on.
Right.
I have these glued on sideburns, and I was just sitting in a chair reading an Entertainment Weekly, and I hear a guy go, "Cold night, huh?" And it was the most recognizable voice in the world, it's Robert Culp.
Right.
Robert Culp flopped down in this chair next to me, and we're literally on the Paramount Ranch. There's like a ghostly campfire lit because we're sitting in front of a fire. We're watching raccoons running up and down the saloon sign of the Paramount Ranch. And then I think I said one word, huh, or something like that. And Culp talked for 30 minutes straight. And he wasn't a blowhard. It was like he was telling it again, it's the same story that Don Stark tells in the book, where he was alone. He came up, and since I was the only one by this fire, he sat next to me, and he just started telling stories about westerns, about outer limits, about no, I didn't say a word except like, huh, or wow, or yeah.
Hmm.
And he did it like a half hour. I had a similar experience with Shatner on something. And they just, they, these older guys, these older cats have done everything and nobody ever asks about the stuff that interests them.
Hmm.
So he told, and that's why I knew he'd be great, but he told, I listened and rapt attention until like the second unit director or the first AD came and got him. And he looks into me and he goes, good talking to you, good talking with you. And I remember, gosh, I said one word. And I told Joseph Culp that story, and he laughs and he goes, "That's very Dad." You know what I mean? I mean,
Hmm.
he was a great guy. I mean, I saw that firsthand, and so there are a couple people who didn't have that story with him in the book, but a
Hmm.
lot of people who did, and I made sure. I believe in balance, and I believe everybody puts every story. The only person the most beloved person in the show was Connie. Everybody from behind the camera, in front of the camera, wanted to share some act of kindness from Connie Selleck, and I dug that. And they liked William Catt, and a lot of them liked Culp, although Culp Culp is the one you would get stories. You know what I mean? I mean, there were
Yeah.
good and bad Culp stories,
Right. You either loved him
and
or you hated him, right? Yeah. I
yeah,
see that.
and I have to say, Mary Ellen Stewart, the greatest American heroine.
That's
I have to
wrong.
thank Joseph at Comic Book Central because he put me in touch with her when he
Mhm.
interviewed me about the Hulk and Buck Rogers.
Yes.
And the only two Joes who knew were you and him. And it's like, and I was shocked by his burst of enthusiasm when I was telling him I was thinking about doing it. And he was so enthusiastic about it. I
Mhm.
decided to use that. When he talked to her, I called him back and I go, hey, Joseph, can you put me in touch with her? And he did, to his credit, you know?
Yeah, I know. I know he's a huge Hero fan. He honored their 40th anniversary, he interviewed each person. And then ironically, your interview was like one of the next two after that or something like that. It was very close. He was interviewing you about Buck. It's kind of
Yeah. And
cool.
then he goes, have you ever, he did what you did where he starts hinting he started hinting for, finding out what I'm doing next. And I just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing
Yeah.
Greatest American Hero. And this burst of enthusiasm from a fellow Michigander, I thought, maybe there's something here. Everybody I knew from Michigan, Gina Sheridan, who was a popcorn girl at the Showcase Cinema Sterling Heights,
Hmm.
she told me at her Christmas party, she was super, super excited when
Hmm.
she asked me what I was doing next. And when I said that, she got really, so everybody from Michigan loves the greatest American hero, I guess,
Yes. And all the way to New Jersey too.
all the way to well, you're not, you were an important moment in hero history. You were the birthplace of Dennis Danger Malone.
I
You
know.
guys went to the
I
same high
live in his
school, right?
hometown. It's crazy. I'm like 5 minutes away from his high school, and I pass it every day. It's wild.
Have you met Dennis yet? You're going to love, love, love
I have
Dennis.
not met Dennis. I've met William, but I've not met Dennis. So that's on my, I hope that, the stars align right and I can meet him and I can meet you too in person, which would be kind of
Oh,
cool.
that would be an honor, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
the great thing about Dennis is, and Dennis and William, again, I think of them as one. That they feel like they're family to each other. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
they're so fun, they're so cool, they're so enthusiastic. I mean, William Catt, he starred in the first Stephen King movie, he starred in the best surfing movie, probably the best Stephen King movie ever made, too, Carrie. He
Yeah.
starred in the best surfing movie.
House.
Yeah, I mean,
House.
I love House.
Yeah.
I mean, the director
Hmm.
of House is in my art is in the book. I got Steve
Yeah.
Miner to give me a quote on,
Oh, cool.
he loved William Catt.
Yeah. So, Pat, I can keep talking to you for on and on, but I think that's all the time we have, and it's amazing how fast the time flew. I really enjoyed the interview.
You know what? Hey, thank you again for everything. One, you spread the word. Two, when I was in the worst stages of the book and thought I would never be done with it, that's when you wrote out of the blue. And so, like with John, like with writing my Incredible Hulk book for Seth MacFarlane and Lottie Ferris Knowles,
Yeah.
I wrote the end of this book. I realized it was your book, Joe. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed the book, and thank you so much for your time. And I am so grateful that you made not only the hero books, but the Hulk books, the Buck Rogers, and I have a new appreciation for Buck Rogers and Jaws now because of you. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Hey, listen, no joke. Thank you so much for getting the word out on the book. And please,
Anytime.
please, please, you and your family and your pets, watch those Crazy Orange Skies because I heard they're coming back this weekend. You know,
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Pat. So be well. And again, thank you so much for your time.
pleasure's mine, Joe. Thank you again.
All right. Have a good one, Pat. Thank you.
You too, sir. Thank you.